Welcome to the Microsoft Security Insights Podcast with your hosts, Franklin Grimberg and Edward Walton, where we discuss Microsoft 365 security and Azure security news and products. So, everybody has their place and importance. So Franklin, him being out, justifies his existence on the podcast. And then we don't have Rod either. So, happy days. So we're good to go. Oh, man. Busy. Yeah, it's a new FY for Microsoft. This is sort of a low season, a lot of trainings going on. A lot of vacation. Folks are doing the last little bit of things with their rug racks before it's time for them to get them back in school and everything. You got kids, B? I didn't know.
I don't. I got a dog, and family expansions on the talks right now. So things are heating up on the trade front, so to speak. So
okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I mean, it's an experience everybody should suffer. I mean, should enjoy.
I got her for one, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll take turns playing around in the Twitch thing. Says good evening, Edward and Brodie, and whoever that is. Is that you? That's not you. Who is Trip?
That's TRP.
Oh yeah. I see
Shout out TRP, always on the chat.
Yeah. Kabe the Husky. Hey, you do anything interesting this week? And I thought I was gonna have three things to talk about, but I really have two, and then I want to ask you a question. So I'll let you go first. Anything interesting happening at any of your customers in the adventures of M365 security?
Yeah, and this is something you and I quickly talked about last week, so maybe I get an opportunity to pick your brain right now. Oh, Red Solo Cup Consulting. Cheers.
Cheers. Red Cup Security.
There you go. You have it on there. I've got Las Vegas on mine. Hey, sweet.
RCS. Red Cup Security.
That's perfect.
See, I take this podcast very seriously.
I can tell. You need a store now. You need a swag store. Get some hats, get some cups.
I mean, you're not anyone until you have a red cup with security.
Yeah. So anyway, got brought in to help with a financial institution, and they are looking to leverage Microsoft data loss prevention capabilities, part of the Microsoft Information Protection Suite. That was for you, Edward. I know you called me out last time on that one. Yeah. Anyway, they got E5. They've got a UAT environment with MCAS. They're playing around, but they're looking to link their existing our DLP solution, the Microsoft DLP solution, with their separate vendor labeling and tagging solution. And they're not ready to bring that out of the equation for a little while, it seems. So they want our solution to automatically label any documents that are tagged, as they call it. We call it labeling. That solution calls it tagging. In the metadata, and then we would apply our own labeling and then be able to do all the protection capabilities, monitoring capabilities, et cetera. So that in itself is going to be fun. And then the other element is they're standing up that log collector server, like I told you about. And they went with on-prem for their log collector. And this organization is used to deploying all on-prem infrastructure in a high availability set. Like we were talking about, it seems like that's not an option with this particular option. And I'm expecting some pushback on a call later this week about that. So I'm probably going to have to educate myself further and get some talking points dialed, because I understood the reasons you gave regarding snapshotting, how it's a pretty robust Linux VM and we don't see it go down. Even if it does go down, it's not like you're losing out on logs. You just start the log collector service again and starts piping everything over, right? So anyway, I need some talking points, bud. What do you got for me?
Well, on premise is that you now have the potential of multiple groups being able to affect the ability for that log collector to send logs to MCAS. The firewall team can make a change. The networking team can make a change. The virtualization team can make a change, which may not be the same people that handle the servers can make a change, right? You could do a live motion or a V motion of the if they're running a hypervisor on premise, and because they're doing some type of change control and maintenance, and you do a live motion or a move of that guest OS or that VM, and then it stops working, right? Because it gets put on the wrong subnet by mistake, right? So by virtue of putting it in the cloud as a containerized workload, you unless the same people that do everything on premise are the same people who do everything in the cloud, you allow less of a chance for operational mishaps to disrupt or change that VM. I've been there. I've seen people inadvertently delete the log collector on premise from the Hyper-V environment because they didn't go through the proper change control. And it was even worse that you would delete it not knowing what it was. But they figured since it was such a low performance machine, it must have been one of the developers just testing something out. And had they looked at it a little bit closer, they would have noticed that it was syslogging to an IP address and collecting information. But the problem with it is that the people that were running the host, the guest, the VM, the network were not M365 security people. They were like, what's an MCAS? What are we doing with this, right?
Yeah.
So they're putting it away from your infrastructure. Now, it's really based on the customer's appetite. Are they huge cloud consumers, right? Or trying to be? It's 7 in one hand, 3 in the other. I don't know what to say, right?
Yeah.
I like my 7 in one hand to be in the cloud and then 3 in the other to be on premise, right?
Completely agree with you. It's just, they've gone that route. I don't know the decision behind deploying it on prem. I'll have to dig into that with them. But yeah, the inherent nature of having that live on Azure and the high availability that exists in that environment, is enough in a sense, right? As opposed to kind of that classic HA pair situation on prem. So I don't know why. Maybe they have a business requirement to keep it on prem. They are a financial institution. Maybe there's something there. But I hear you. But if I could deploy it in Azure, I would personally.
Yeah, I'm responding. Someone said, "Hey, should I tag this?" Process. Good mapping and documentation. Will take care of most things, right? And a robust change control. And then if you put it in Azure, you can put Azure policies that if someone's trying to manipulate that VM, change the subnet on it, anything about that, and then you can protect it with Azure Security Center or Azure Defender for servers.
Yes.
That way, right?
Yes.
So now when you put it on premise, now you got to figure out it is a Linux container, but it's not invulnerable to attacks. Now you got one of the more, Linux is super powerful, but it's still able to be compromised. So you got to worry about patching and things along that line. Not that you don't have to worry about inside of Azure, but a lot of the platform is taking care of you from an inherent security by virtue of putting it on there. In the end, it is what the customer's MO is, their appetite for doing things different. And they may have internal controls to say you can't do this. So
exactly. Yeah.
When a customer goes that route, you give them experiences based on what you see in the field. In my experience, give them experiences based on what you've seen in the field, both for and against, and then you leave it up to them. So when they ask what's best, say, "Hey, I want you to put it in Azure so that you lessen the troubleshooting matrix." But if you're new to it, Azure, it's really the appetite. I've seen it done both ways, even to this day. But if I'm in the cloud, it's a low risk workload, right? If it blows up, I can spin another one up really quick, right? So
yeah, I hear you, bud.
I want to ask you a question. Are you pretty good with EOP and policies and spam and stuff like
that? Sure. Yeah. Why not?
I'll talk to you out of band about it. I got a question. My MDO skills, Microsoft Defender for Office 365, is abysmal now, right? Because I just don't play in that sanitation of email coming in. I'm like, we've been doing email for 20 plus years, and it's still an insecure method of transport. It is still it can be secure, but it's at the same time it's super vulnerable by the way it's being utilized, as people are just using this for payload delivery. Yeah. So I want to pick your brain a little bit, maybe tomorrow during working hours.
Yeah.
Anything else going on?
Well, funny you brought up MDO because I know you changed your scoring a few pods ago regarding what would you deploy first, and MDO made it to the top. And you know what, with with more of these, Windows virtual desktop options coming out, and just focusing more on the account and not the endpoint, I think I agree with your approach there, where we got to focus on MDO as that first easy thing to deploy, and easy subjective, obviously, right? Things like the Orca tool and Microsoft's recommended settings, both standard and more complex or more restrictive for MDO, make it a lot easier to deploy from an Exchange front. It kind of gives customers a baseline, right? And then they can tweak from there.
Well, the problem is that customers who've been with something else for a while have gone through the pain already of tweaking, false positives, policies, whitelisting, DKIM, DMARC, SPF. And when they flip, they are reintroducing a lot of this tweaking that's probably thrown out the window if they were using Mimecast or they were using Proofpoint or they had an iron port. These things are going out the window, right? So now they're starting to say, hey, my stuff is getting caught. My stuff is not getting caught, and things along that line, right? Totally different experience. But it's one of those things that you could be very good at and do that only for especially large organizations. But most of the time, people who are doing that are expected to know all the other products, and it's not fair to try to, because email is important, folks. People think the world is ending if you can't get email, right?
Yeah, so I hear you. I have a massive Exchange background, and yeah, I hear you, bud. And honestly, yeah, since we're calling out other vendors, positively, of course, for our listeners, the one I have to work with a lot is people moving on from Proofpoint because they want to consolidate, and there's no easy one-to-one migration strategy, right? I do think we have a very competitive product, and every business or organization has different needs, and so maybe not all features map one-to-one from one product to another. And so, yeah, I hear you. You could definitely specialize in that front.
Yeah, and then just put Proofpoint in front of it. Don't wait till your contract's almost over. Stand up EOP and put it in through pass-through and just inspection only, and see what it does in catch versus whatever the other product thing is a legitimate sanitation evolution or task, right? Or vice versa. If you want to put Proofpoint in pass-through and then EOP in enforcement mode, see what it would have stopped versus what it did not stop. And I know there's some inherent risks. So the former is probably the way people go, right? Still keep my existing enforcement, put EPO behind it as the next hop, and then see what it is catching, saying, hey, put all the policies over you, but no enforcement, and see what happens, right? And then go back and check it. That is, Proofpoint is not incentivized to write a migration tool. Why would I write it, right?
No doubt. Yeah, and that's defense in depth. That's important, as long as they can play nice together and you don't attempt to have them both playing in the same field and potentially having some things get lost in translation. Yeah, you gotta plan that migration carefully. I've been involved in those. It's fun times.
So what else? Doing a huge MDI project, which is not super exciting. It's more about networking and allowing domain controllers to talk to the internet in a safer fashion, right? But I did watch an interesting MDI live in actions. That's a very hard demo to do, right? Doing those type of authentication stuff
on Spark.
Yeah, it was all in Spanish though.
I know. I didn't know it was a Spanish session, but I rolled with it, because I really wanted to see. And I want to let you finish, but I've got an MDI engagement coming up, and that was my second point too. So keep going. I would love to hear.
Yeah, I stayed and watched it the entire day. Right, I was like, this is cool, right? I picked up some of the words, but it was a great way to learn. I don't speak Spanish, but it was a great way to learn because they were explaining what they were doing, and I could see it. They were like, "Hey, we're doing this with the domain." I think the threat actor was called Terminator or Attacker or something like that. And I was watching. I was like, "Okay," and the guy did a very good job. That demo is not easy. It's hard. Like the ATA demo was hard. Before, and then when it changed over to Azure Advanced Threat Protection, it was hard. And then trying to do MDI demos, because you got to put all these exploits in an environment that you can run it. They're just not going to set up all these flags. I mean, it used to be a sanitation, a hydration lab that would build all this out. I remember it used to be on premise. I've not seen one where they build it in Azure, because it is cloud-based, and a lot of these things will just absolutely make your Azure inherent security tools go buck wild, right? What is going on with all this stuff? So I do keep a lab for that. Most of my domain controls are turned down, but I do spin it up, and I do have it running. And so I've inadvertently tested a couple of things, like we're running some Kali tools, and I was running some Bloodhound tools against my AD just to get used to the interface. My MD started sending alerts off like, "Hey, somebody's enumerating your directory. Someone's doing DNS stuff, right?" Yeah. MDI also catches zone transfers by privilege identities. Like, why is this guy doing a DNS mapping, DHCP altering, and doing these things? So it looks at directory behavior. And then I saw some other cool things inside his demo when he searched the user, and you could see all the telemetry and the bio about the user on the side. And we keep forgetting that a lot of these products don't have an activator. Like when you move the mouse over something that says, "Hey, you could click here." I passed over product features in Microsoft security products that I thought didn't do anything because they don't sort of highlight when you hover over them.
Oh, interesting.
Right? Yeah, so I'm like, oh, you could do that in that. So that's a cool tool to do some searching.
Cool.
And this is doing what I actually have in an alert. This is just regular. The product it is ingrained within your directory fabric, and so you can look at sensitive group manipulation that may not be associated with an attack. All these things going into it, so it's actually pretty cool. But it's not a very exciting product, and it shouldn't be.
Agreed. Well, I mean, you could say that about a lot of security products, right? If you hope they don't get lit up, but
if you get lit up, you got a problem.
Yeah, got a problem. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And I've been playing with a couple other things. I'm trying to write a KQL. Actually, it's an MDE question, and I'll ask Frank when he gets back. Someone asked me this question: is there a way in MDE or Intune / Microsoft Endpoint Management to search for the last reboot of a workstation?
Really?
There is no native way inside the UI. I've had some smart people like trying to write KQL queries like, "Oh, you need to go do this. You need to use desktop analytics and all this stuff." I'm like,
so noob question, is that because that's for system event logging and not security event logging? Is that why it's not inherently being ported over there?
I don't know. So someone said, the question was how to use MDE or Intune to see the, last reboot of and here's the keyword, workstation. Because looking for a server is easy because they got System Center. And so that's part of the collection. I can see when the server was last rebooted. I have the device events coming into Sentinel for the customer, but I can't discern when the machine was rebooted. And the reason they want it, they're pushing software and people are deferring the reboots and they don't want to force the reboot of the machine. I said, man, create an Intune policy or Microsoft Endpoint Management policy. Put the people in there and reboot their machine. Don't give them a banner that says you need to reboot. You're going to reboot.
Too bad. You're getting the reboot and things will open up, hopefully. And if they don't, whatever. Security is more important. You can reopen your tabs later. Yeah.
Now, that sounds good on paper until you piss off the wrong person.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
In the military, it's called RIF. Rank has its privileges. And you mess with the wrong person. Like, I was in the middle of $1 million document, and now I have to start over. So who's getting fired today? Yeah. So that's what the customer's sort of afraid of, right?
Yeah, fair.
But anyway, someone saying 8472 says should be in the MS graph, but the customer doesn't want it in the graph. The customer wants it in the interface that they've already onboarded machines and enrolled it in Intune. I need to look at a machine, and I should be able to do it. Now, on the machine, easy. I can open up a PowerShell command, but I need to do it across thousands of machines to assure that when the software was pushed, it was rebooted, right? And they're giving the customer the option to reboot. Hey, your administrator has done this. Would you like to reboot or defer? What do you think this person's going to do?
Yeah, every time.
Every time. Defer. Oh, man, I will reboot. All right, so.
Yeah, well, that'd be useful telemetry to have in that portal, especially if you're doing like a post-incident investigation. You want to have that all tracked, right? So.
And they used to be in there. So in Intune, if you modify the columns, it would say last reboot time. Now you can only get last checked in. Now, I know how to figure that out by virtue of if it's not there, then it must be this. Like if I see a bunch of last checked ins on 721, chances are those machines rebooted. They just weren't checking in for their health and Intune and compliance posture checking, and they weren't checking into MDE just for XDR. That means they rebooted, right? So even when I do a KQL query for device events and try to see it, I can see heartbeat, but a loss of heartbeat doesn't mean reboot. That could be I unplugged it, right?
Fair. Yeah. You want to get that exact data. Yeah, that's fair. It's one thing to make educated guesses, but it's another to actually have the facts in front of you.
Yeah. And I'm going to figure it out. I'm getting close. But the customer, like, I need this where I can point and click, because it's a point and click in the competitor products.
Yeah, fair.
Right? I can look at a thing and say, oh, this machine has been up for these many days, which in itself is, it hasn't been rebooted by law of abstraction. If it hasn't done anything these many days, that means it has been rebooted, right?
Right.
And so you can see these things, right? So, yes. So somebody wants to post a chat.
Yeah, that's all good. Well, back on. So when you figure that out, let me know. I think that's.
I'm going to get it figured out. It's a challenge now, because I've asked some deep folks in MDE, like, no, and they've given me the things like someone saying, the endpoint analytics, but that's to me, that's not a heavy lift. The customer doesn't want to do that, and it won't populate the columns. So you have to go to endpoint analytics when you stand it up in Azure, and then you'll see it. But then that's one more thing. They don't want to go outside of Intune, and they do not want to go outside of MDE. Yeah. And there is a separate portal that once you go in and properly get desktop analytics or endpoint analytics, that's a totally separate portal that you see, right? So
dare I say customers want a single pane of glass, Edward?
They can have a single red cup and kick rocks. How about they do that? They can kick some rocks barefooted. I do want to talk about one cool thing and keep this sort of succinct or very focused today, and give the day back. Why I'm lining up guests for the next 3 weeks, right? So I got one guest for next week, and I need a guest for the week after that. I already got someone that's going to come on the 18th of August, and they're going to do a deep dive into Juniper / Azure notebooks as they relate to Sentinel. She's going to come from the product team, deep, because I'm weak on notebooks, and you'll be weak on notebooks if you're not used to Python. If you can't get around in Python, it's going to be a struggle, right? Okay. So I broke up my Python for Dummies book, and it's a good skill to have. Python and Linux sort of go hand in hand, so get it. And then it also makes you learn other things, because when you do that, you'll get more embedded into whatever your IDE is, such as VS Code, right? So this is that by association learning, which I like. I learned this because I had to learn this to be able to do this. Yeah. That's the best way to learn, right?
Totally.
Pick up a lot of exposure.
I learned some Python by buying a Raspberry Pi and just messing around on it, right? Because the underlying OS, you can just code with Pi, so it's cool. But I haven't touched it in a while. It's kind of collecting dust in my shelf right now. So yeah, that'd be a good excuse to open that up. I got two. I got for my IoT, I got a Fillet and a Raspberry and something else. So that's going to be some of my pet project, just to do something. So I'm not, the whole drum of my day job is beating me to death, right? I'm doing the same thing, right? And sometimes I'm resisting of it, right? But there are definite skill set holes in the things I need to cover. So instead of me keep fixating on things I'm good at, I need to go show up the weaknesses that I have. Right? That's actually really good advice. Anyone listening, you got to be dynamic. Don't just get stuck in a rut doing the same thing. You might master it, but are you really expanding your mindset, expanding what you're learning, right? And getting in some other stuff. That's super important.
And you'll get complacent because we have extensive networks of peers because we've been doing this so long. So rather than struggle, you call somebody.
Yeah,
and a buddy will help you out, right? They'll take care of it. I'm going to add that to my skill set, because what I think I want to do in the next couple of years, everybody now seems to, no matter what you do, they're asking for some type of developer skills. It used to be, say, good at scripting, PowerShell. They're saying CI/CD, developer skills, Linux, Python. Regardless of what you're doing, you have to have the understanding of what you're referencing when you see it. So you can't resist, because everything is going to code. Infrastructure as a code. Security as a code. Everything is going like this, right? So
totally.
You don't have to master Python. You don't have to master Linux. But on a scale of 1 to 5, if you want to be a player, you got to be a 3. You call yourself technical. If you're sales, you can be a 1 or 2.
Yeah. Enough to get around, research what you need when you need it. Yeah, that's fair, bud. That's fair.
And enough to ask, and enough to know that when you do ask for help, you're asking an intelligent question.
Yeah, not what is Python? Yeah.
What is Python? I know what boy is, but I don't know what Anaconda. Anaconda is actually a product, right?
I didn't know that. Just learned something. All right.
Yeah. So,
well, speaking of guests, it's funny. I actually moderated my first Spark session, which is great. And for those who are listening who are unaware, Spark is a series of internal for the field, by the field technical education meetings that we have at Microsoft, and we get some really cool people. And Tom, who you had on last week, I actually moderated his Azure Security Center talk this week, and so that was pretty cool. He's a good guy, and Safina was on there too. So yeah, small world.
It is small world. Tom's funny, man. I learned so much about Azure Arc, man.
What an important product. Like it's just bring everything home. Let's just get it all together in the one umbrella, right? So
slow and steady wins the race. It's one of those adoptive products that will be adopted by necessity, but not necessarily by how cool and how much impact it gives you right away. The same way Docker was. And I was a fan of Docker and containerizing stuff, and I thought it chose the security road rather than going down that road. But I didn't foresee that it would help spur the rapid adoption and pervasiveness of things like Kubernetes. Docker was a precursor to all these things, right? And then they never figured out how to monetize it. They sold it, but they didn't. Those guys should be multi-billionaires, man. But they didn't figure out. That's the biggest thing. You can come up with a big idea, but when you can't monetize it, it's just an idea.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That's like people that are so smart they amount to be nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And when we work with so many organizations that are multi-cloud, like I was scoping a project for a customer had over 60,000 endpoints on AWS, and they're like, we want to bring that all under Azure Security Center. So it's like, yeah, well, without Azure Arc, that wouldn't be possible, right? And just think of all that telemetry. Think of that customer just managing that one portal. And I love Azure Security Center. I don't get to play in it enough. I don't get enough engagements on it. Hopefully, it's more in the future, but it's just an amazing product. So yeah, Azure Arc is going to be needed in a lot of organizations going forward.
Education, healthcare, things we talked about have a lot of legacy stuff, and those who have multi-cloud who want to extend their security capabilities. So, so let me tell you one other cool thing.
Sure.
That I did, and then I will let you get to yours, and we'll, like I said, we'll keep the podcast sort of tight today and let everybody get a little rest. Yeah, I'm not sure. I just work here. So let me share my screen. Well, I can't share my screen because I'm actually working at a customer stuff, but
we'll pretend. We'll put on our imagination caps here. What do you got?
So, do I have something I can share? Let me see something.
Just close everything. Close your 400 tabs.
I don't care about that, man. So let me show you something cool.
Okay.
So I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm to the audience that's seeing me look away. Because I'm looking at something. So let me pull the Twitch screen over here, so it's over there, and then the meeting's there, and then here. So let me share.
I keep organized with 12 monitors, eh?
Yeah. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. My Apple in the back. Just got a brand new Lexmark printer. Actually, pretty good.
Wow.
The other one bit the dust. Like I never seen the printer. Never seen a printer about to explode.
Did you handle your print nightmare vulnerabilities on your internal network before setting that printer up?
No.
No. Okay.
I mean, if you get in. So let me ask you a question about that.
I don't know a lot. I have a sysadmin background, and me and printers have had a lot of history. So
I'm trying to figure out, how do people actually get to it? Do you have some type of web server running on that printer that you should turn off? Do you have a gateway on that printer that's talking out, or are they delivering a malicious payload? I really need to read it because it is behind my infrastructure. My printers cannot get out. So when they ask for IP information, they only get the IP address and a mask. I don't give a gateway. There is no talk out. Right? So
eFax?
eFax. So people said, well, Ed, we're not attacking a printer, man. We're attacking a print server vulnerability in the thing. I said, I get that, but the printer is secure, a print internally only, and even if I'm running the print spooler or print service on mine, if you have the other mitigating controls around it, right, MDE, somebody's, you can do this. Plus, it's been exploited in the wild. Maybe I just have a good customer base. I've had nobody who's had an issue. Plus, I've been running KQL queries to see. Right.
Okay. So maybe if you're the printer maintenance guy, and I'm just throwing this out there, I have not attacked a printer. Maybe printer maintenance guy comes down, he's got a sketchy USB, plugs it into the firmware update, pour it on the back, and maybe that's a way in. But you would need on-site access for that type of thing, and you would hope the printer would have a control to prevent the USB from being read without going through an admin panel of some kind.
You can't secure lack of process. You can't secure bad behavior, and you can't secure stupidity.
I need that on a plaque around here. That's great.
You know, you can't secure bad processes. You can't secure bad habits, and you can't secure stupidity. Security can overcome a lot of stuff, but those ain't. Because if they're used to doing it bad and you don't beat them across the knuckles, they're going to keep doing it. If you have a lack of process, people are going to go, well, you didn't tell me I couldn't, so I'll interpret it as I can. And then some people are just stupid. Like, it's not going to happen to me. It is going to happen to you, right? Yeah. Hackers ain't hacking because they think it's cool and they want bounties. Yeah, they want a bounty. But anyway, another cool feature in MDI, let's pivot back. In MDI, in the security posture, it checks your domain controls and makes sure that the principal is turned off. Did you notice that?
I didn't.
So if you have any domain controls that have the principal running, you'll get a very bad frowny face, right? Yeah. Mine is green, so I'm good to go.
Good job.
So let me show you this.
Yeah, pull it
up. This is something one of my favorite features in Sentinel. No, it's not watch list, Frank.
Do you think he'll listen? Think he'll listen to the whole thing, critique you?
Yeah, because he want to come back and tell how terrible we were.
Yeah.
You started the show 3 minutes late.
Oh, and the echo problem, by the way, that was all me. So when he goes back, when you go back and listen, it was because I had Twitch open. So
I don't listen to Frank.
You just have his Zoom login credentials and.
Yeah, I may lock him out so he'll never get it back, and then change the email to reset the password. So even if he's trying to email it back to himself, he can't. So I think I'll do that. Take and own him. I own your account now.
Yeah, right? Yeah, do it.
So let me show you something real quick. And whoever put in it, they put the anonymous. I think that's anonymous icon, or it's a very scary clown face. In the chat.
That's the default Twitch smiley. It's weird. Yeah.
It is weird.
Yeah, so there's probably a backstory on that, but I don't know what.
So when you can see my screen, let me know.
I can see your screen, Frank. Go ahead.
What screen are you?
I can see your banking information, your social security number.
That's the bad screen there. Hold on for a
second. No, you're good. It's KQL query logs. No, I was just messing with you. Oh man, you're so gullible. That's too easy.
Oh, golly. Yeah. This is. But they didn't. Oh, there it is. You know what I'm used to seeing?
There you go.
I'm used to seeing the red thing around Teams and the.
There you go. Frank's laughing right now. His joke never gets old. You Microsoft guys, you can't run Zoom. Here we are. Yeah.
All right. So here's go. So inside entity behavior is cool. Check this out. So you can go into behavior and you can see stuff that's happening, right? You can just laugh. But check this out. Entity behavior settings. So this is set up, right? Audit log, so and so, and then you'll be able to do it, right? After connecting the file, then you'll be able to for yourself. So there was a done. I go apply, even though it's already been done. And this one was the cool thing. Account added to a privileged group. Account added to enterprise admin group. Failed network log on to a host. These are the things that you can customize the entity behavior. So let's say this one, a user has been added to a security group. So I create the activity, right? Cool. Filter by parameter is domain join. Activity, oh, I gotta go back previous. Perimeter value is true that they did it. Right. Go here. Input fields must be part of an input list, so and so. That's fine. Let me see, review. Don't give me a red X, validate it.
My demo gods, here we go.
It must be part of a so and so. View query results here.
You know, if you passed your SC200, maybe that wouldn't have failed.
I think I'm going to take that to test again, and I'm actually
going to challenge it. Like,
so it runs the query
by writing it.
Yeah, the first thing I do when I get these type of things in a template that don't run to give me a validation check, I come and just run a query and see if I get any errors. So it could be, a loose change here. And so this is helpful. Did you know you could do that?
I did, yeah.
I'm like, oh, I thought this is me and Frank arguing again about, so let's see, it must be part of the query list, account name, and so and so, so and so. So Okay, I see what's going on. I need to go back and add the well-known sets. So it's going to fail again. All right. But the cool part about it, if I go back and I say that the user was added to a local privilege group, right? Create activity. Let me see if I can find one that works. Field by parameters, domain join, parameter here. Let's go false, stats enabled, activity configuration. So it's going to do that. So I need to modify that. But the cool part about this is being able to have this. So now you have custom activities that you can watch so that when you add the activity, I can write one from scratch rather than using it, right? So what if I did it like this? I did is domain join parameters true, name, I'll go test, right? And then I'll go here, and then I can write the query in here. So another way to check is to run that query in there where it did it in the log editor, put it in here because I know it already passed check. I got the identifiers in here, right? And activity title in the timeline. So I want to play with this because if you go back to this and go back to Sentinel and go back to entity behaviors, if I go this guy, it's just going to list the insights for what it deems, behavior that could be indicative of a campaign, a precursor to an attack, or bad actor type of stuff. And it takes time to do the insights because it's looking across all those logs. But I think what that does is gives me a customizable pane. So instead of having to go to an individual user, I can see any entity that's doing that type of behavior. Right? Because inside of here, notice I can't put more than one.
Right.
So if I do that thing, or let me go back, I'll show you. So if I do it this way, I got so many accounts, right? But if I click on it, it takes me to that individual account. So that template allows me to look at all activity for users. I thought that was pretty cool. So now I don't have to be pinned to just looking at that particular entity or artifact, right? Because what if that artifact didn't do anything? But I'm
wanted
to
see. Chuckling at your domain name right now, edwardclosedports.com. That's great.
Yeah, I've had that name. I bought that domain name for 20 years or whatever the max could be. People been trying to get it. That's when I call myself a huge networking guy. I used to be really good at networking. Now I sort of suck.
You could probably sell that for like 10 Dogecoin these days.
Dogecoin. We should start our own coin. We should start an MSI coin, right?
MSI coin, yeah. Just one more coin. That's what the world needs right now.
And it's only accepted like liquor stores.
Yeah, I like that.
Like a booze coin. Like booze coin.
Pretty sure they have booze coin. I'm just gonna call that, but MSI coin.
It's only usable at college campuses, right?
Yeah, good stuff.
So that's what I wanted to show. I'm going to play with that and figure out why that. But I'm going to create me a custom template for the entity behavior, and that's now I can see very specific behavior about what's going on.
How are you feeling on your KQL skills? Like, are you getting better by the week? I still got to dive into it. I just haven't had the opportunity yet. But do you feel like you're learning more and you're skilling up?
Yeah. The reason that I had to really start over because I learned all the bad habits. So going through Frank's course that he helped facilitate, create with the SE200 help, Pluralsight help. So I'm going back and I'm learning the real way. Plus I'm learning by virtue of just being in the job. My job is a lot of salesy. And oftentimes when I do get pulled into a lot of technical stuff is already hit the wall, right? Hit the fan rather. So every day I'm getting better at it, but I haven't really thrown myself into it. The best KQL people I've met are not security people. These are these data scientist guys. They're really good. Azure Monitor guys. They're like, what you were trying to do in behavior.
Yeah, there you go, right paragraph. There, right? Yeah. 1,000 words a minute. Yeah.
I'll tell you the secret. Sign up for follow as many people on GitHub who are really good at KQL. And then you start to see it. And then the way I'm learning is that I'm taking multiple queries and I'm understanding the join, the outer, the inner, as well as the union commands. Oh. And that makes it go, oh, that's how I combine the results from this one, this one, this one, and this thing, And if you do that, it'll sort of set your framework on how to operate in notebooks. Because notebooks is more than programmable notepad, it looks like, right? With Python, that's the writing language, right? So getting better every day.
Cool.
you get what you do. So my skills are directly proportional to the amount of effort I'm putting in, to be fair.
And you only have so many hours every day, right? So you got to be tactical at what you're learning and what you're skilling up on, because you don't want to deviate too much from what you're doing. It's just you're burning time at that point. Time's the most valuable thing on the planet, in my opinion, these days. It's you gotta really have a plan, right?
I don't like writing KQL to solve problems. I like writing KQL to create solutions.
Love it.
Something that some people can consume, like workbooks and analytic queries that multiple people can use. I don't want to solve your problem. If I solve your problem, am I solving other people's problem at the same time, right? That's how I like, I like creating a solution that anyone can plug in. That's the reason I'm a big fan of the workbooks. When I see someone create a cool workbook, man, I'm all over it. I love workbooks. Here's something else. If you come from a security standpoint, you would assume that workbooks are only resident and inherent to Sentinel. Workbooks have been around, right? Once again, it goes back to the sharing. I won't fail this time.
I believe in you.
Right.
There you go.
If you go here, and I get totally out of this, right? Go home. Just type in this. Workbooks. It's an Azure workload. Whether you have Sentinel or not, it just so happened the majority of mine is. So there are workbook templates that exist that have nothing to do with Sentinel. Most of these are, but you can see that you can go in and there are workbook templates. Look at that. So you can come in and pull these down. You can contribute workbook templates to help other user workbook do amazing things.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that was an option.
And so if you sign up to Azure subscription that's being shared by a bunch of folks or across multiple subscriptions, all the workbooks can show up.
Oh, cool. Well, that's really collaborative. That's smart.
And so if you log into maybe a Microsoft sponsored one with your Microsoft identity and then go to look how many workbooks you see.
Yeah, I bet there's
a lot of them, right? Cool. And then you can just pull down templates to be able to do cool stuff, right? Because a lot of these are associated. Ones I've seen are associated with Azure Monitor.
Yeah. Well, you don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? I love your idea. Follow all the smart people on GitHub. I mean, you might as well leverage what's out there instead of, getting stuck in a rut and trying to invent it yourself, right? Let's all just build on each other's work. That's the industry, right? It's more efficient that way.
And you don't learn and consume as quickly if you are very pointed and focused. Like now, when I'm studying like this for a very specific thing, SC200, I'm very deliberate about what I'm spending my time on. But when I'm developing something, I allow myself to drift a little bit to say, oh, that's cool. Let me look over here real quick and over here. But I think the most focused I've been in a long time when I was studying for the SANS 555 exam. I was getting up every morning like 5:30, get my morning routine out of the way, study from 6:15 to 7:15 every day, and put the time in. And so, sometimes I'm task oriented, like I'm not going to learn for the sake of learning, man. The hell with that, But now when I do it because I like to build solutions to share, and then I like people to vet the solutions. Like, hey, this could be better. Like, really, show me. They go in, it's like, oh, I could have eliminated 15 lines of code with this statement I knew nothing about, right? So I put it in there, right? Cool. That's all that I have, man. That's the coolness of my week. What about yourself?
Cool, bud. Cool. Well, I mean, if we get back on MDI super quick, so next week, project kickoff. I built that lab I was telling you about in Azure, and I did a nested VM lab. So I got one VM. It's hosting a Hyper-V environment. It's got a couple DCs, file server, just your standard stuff. And so that was really fun to learn. Stand up the whole thing, set up the independent sensor, not the standalone sensor, the sensor that lives on the domain controller. I forget what the name difference is there.
Lightweight.
The lightweight sensor. Okay. And yeah, honestly, so that was great to learn. And I wanted to run attacks against that environment, which Frank cleared. He's like, yeah, if it's a nested VM, like no one's gonna raise any alarm bells because that's one layer down. So I'm like, that's great.
It's inside the host.
Yeah. So fire up Kali or something, or Bloodhound. I haven't used that one yet, so that's cool. But man, I learned we get a credit through Microsoft, right? And I talked to Mr. Sozman, and he encourages me to, and I know you do as well, spend the money on your own tenant. Give yourself more ability to learn. And I'm going to go that route, but I'm just trying to like ride the freebie right now, to be honest with you. So we got a couple $100, and I knew the storage would trickle up over time, but I didn't know that the Azure Bastion cost would also trickle up over time. And the only way to stop that, even if you're not using it and not transferring anything through Bastion or using it as the way into your environment, it still consumes, and actually consumes at double the rate of my storage because of how I had it set up. So I just had to basically go in and deprovision it because I was burning Azure bucks, and I've kind of got the kickoffs next week, so I'm kind of running out of credit here. So I got to watch it.
Well, so if you have an Azure environment and you're an employee, you have a Microsoft at Microsoft.com, you should get an Airs account, which is about $2,500 a month.
I was looking up that on internal sites, and I didn't see anything to suggest that it was recently updated. I'm gonna ask my manager, because the other consultant who was just amazing. I reached out to a Teams group for MDI, and this gentleman, he called me right away and spent 2 hours just unpacking his entire experience on the fly. It was just the people you work with inside Microsoft are just so amazing and giving. And he said the same thing. He's on an Airs program. He said he got set up on that like 5 years ago or something. He's not sure if it's around. So I'm going to investigate again, because I don't want to be constrained by the 200, and I don't want to sound cheap here, but if I can, if the company can pay for it, the company can pay for it, right? Like a dollar's a dollar. So I'd like to have more options there to test. So
yeah, the 365 consumption is pretty straightforward. $1,000 for E5 all up, right? I'm rounding it up, of course.
Yeah.
But when you start putting Azure workloads in, see, there is no free like that, right? So you got to be careful, or you be like Frank instead of IoT and get a $50,000 bill.
Oh man,
he ended up with a bill like $3,000, and they're trying to get him squared away, right? So
is he still working on that?
They got the ticket resolved, so he was in support ticket hell nightmare trying to get it created. But that's what he gets for telling me to open a support ticket that got my certification profile erased. It took me a month and a half to get put back.
Right.
So
yeah, okay. Well, I hope he gets the credit. And I know I talked to Matt Sosman, and he says, he's doing a lot of Defender for IoT right now. You can see it in his videos. And I'm not going to say the number, but he is shelling out for a personal IoT subscription. Like the minimum is a lot per month for what he's doing.
It is a lot. Luckily that I got a NFR of sorts. So when I finally spin mine up, I'm not really concerned about the cost within reason.
Okay.
Right. I'll start playing with Defender for IoT much more heavily in August.
Oh yeah. Okay. Got some customers. Wanna chat? Okay. Yeah. What kinds of industries are these customers in? Don't get specific, obviously, but
manufacturing.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. Putting sensors on stuff. And I tell you, an industry that could really use it. Airlines. Especially around tolerance around engines, parts that fail, that when they fail, bad things happen.
Yeah.
Right.
That's fair. Let's see.
Shipping. I think most people introduction to IoT is baby monitors and stuff like that.
You get into security talks about operational technology networks, and it's things that have a kinetic effect, right? People could get hurt. Things could blow up. Right. It's like you got to be able to manage these things appropriately. So these customers you're working with, like, are they, was it air gapped, and now they're open to the idea of, allowing these sensors and these devices to actually talk to the cloud? Like they're opening up to that idea because of remote management capabilities, et cetera.
They're opening up because they have a way to security and monitor what the hell is happening. Right. Like I can't tell what was going on, so I'm not going to do it until I can have a way. Even if something bad happens, if I don't know what's happening, how did it really happen? Right. So now that they have a way to be able to funnel that traffic through and be able to see these things, they're much more receptive to it. And besides, IoT is a game of scale. If you can get it right for one thing, you can go from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16, 16 to 32. Just follow the framework that you use to secure it, regardless of where it is in the world, right? And so Don't deviate from that. And then I don't know if you can implement Azure policies against IoT stuff. I should ask Thomas that with Azure R2. Maybe I will.
Yeah, I'm back on. Sure, you know.
I bet he would know. But just it's a game of scale. Do it right for one thing, then do it right for two things, then do it right for four things, then do it right for 8 things and 16. Right? And if you encounter something, fix, resolve, mitigate, document, create exclusion, accept the risk, move on. Right? That's why in security, you don't always have to be technical to have value, experience to tell you, don't shoot your toes off. Now pay me $1,000 an hour, right? Sometimes consultants just get paid to tell you stuff you already know.
Yeah.
Like, don't drop that rock on your foot.
Right, please.
Lift with your legs.
Yeah.
You know.
So have you found like, so when Microsoft acquired CyberX, I was all over the webinars. Like I thought this was the coolest stuff, right? Like real kinetic effect security stuff, but I had no OT experience, right? I come from productivity, M365 Exchange, et cetera. So I talked to Matt about it. Again, Matt Sozman, friend of the show. And he's like, you don't need to be an expert in OT environments or the security. You just need to know our product and how it can protect those existing environments. Let the electrical engineers, let those guys who have been in that space manage, the majority, and you can come in and be that guy to connect, right, those items and give those leaders and those organizations visibility. So how do you feel? Do you feel like the transition kind of into that world has been straightforward or hit some pitfalls or what?
Well, I'm not transitioning because it's not a workload that I do. It's one of my peers. She's good at it. I want to learn it too because she's doing some cool stuff with it, even with her home operational stuff and robots and pies and all this other stuff. I have a leg up because one of the aspects that you do need to know is networking. And I come from a networking background. So understanding how things talk out, I'm super familiar with. Understanding PCAPs, doing traffic captures. So I came from that network general sniffer protocol analysis way back in the day. So when someone wants to do a network capture to be able to see something, it's not foreign to me. I can do it because I was doing some network capture inside of it was a 365 product.
Is it MDI?
No, it was something. Was it Sentinel or MDE? But I did a network capture to take a look at the traffic because I was just trying to look at it and save it, and then I expanded traffic out. I'll figure out what I was doing. I need to record this stuff sometimes. But what was I doing? I forget. I'll find it though. But being able to then look at the traffic patterns and stuff. So understanding Linux helps you out tremendously. Right. So this is that auxiliary stuff that gets you ready to actually test your product, right? So I don't have any formal IoT experience or anything that would give me a leg up. I just happen to have previous experience touching other things that built my career up, right? So you don't have to come in from that. You can start net new and still be a rock star. Like Matthew Solzman's right. Learn the product, and then you can work backwards because the customer is going to be the networking expert. You just need to tell them, put this on here and point it here.
Yeah.
And then I'll do my stuff.
$1,000.
Right?
Yeah.
$1,000.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, that's good to hear. I want to get into that stuff. So I love hearing those updates. Okay. So just super quick, finishing up MDI. I know you want to get going. So with your customers, I got into Spark session, and I know that certain organizations are wary about putting those lightweight sensors right on their DCs. And from last episode, you talked about, you want to have that behind a proxy. Obviously, don't just have those DCs talking right to the internet. But do you still get customers who insist on the standalone? Because internally, I'm told you really want to push for lightweight. There's just way less headaches, way less problems. But it's that maybe getting past that, conversation with your InfoSec team or the organization's InfoSec team. Who wants an agent on a domain controller used to be the line of thinking, but now we're like, no, you want this, right? So like, what have you seen, and how do you address that?
Talk from experience and not the shortcomings of the product or the inherent deployment dependencies of the product. So here's how. There is an assumption that the cleaner your domain controller is, the safer it is. The least amount of things that you can have your domain controller doing. right? So there is some validity to that if you bring that old line of thinking, and it still has things. So when a customer says, "I don't want to put the sensor or the lightweight gate, agent or gateway," right? Say, okay, give me an up to date and the most accurate network diagram that you have, because you're gonna have to span these ports. If we're gonna tap these ports, right, because you want to have them in line, they don't have one. Oh, we don't have an up to date diagram. Well, can you ping from end to end over your organization? And if you can, are all of your networking devices of the same manufacturer? So when I span a port here, I've only had one customer that had a management network that was so put together. They like, we can tap off anything. Just tell us what. They had all their domain controls on a very specific network, ports trunked to be able to talk back, and had protocols, routing ACLs to say that only these things can go through. They were really good. But if you go to the average customer that says, no, we're not putting the agent, just tell us what to do. So you're going to go to every switch where you have a domain control, and you're going to span or mirror that port. So span and mirror are the same thing. You're going to mirror the port. They give up. Yeah, they give up. Because now I got to go talk to the, especially if it's a global company.
Yeah.
Now, if it's a small company, they may have a reason to say, hey, we only have 5 domain controllers, and all those domain controllers are on switches. But if I span that port, that either port, to mirror that traffic, and I have to make sure that that traffic can get over that VLAN, and then you got to take into consideration VLAN tagging, trunking the port, routing. So ask them for a network diagram, be sure they can ping from end to end, and if they do have a management or a subnet that's specific for domain controllers, because domain controllers still need to talk out for patching, DNS resolution, you're going to shut down 3389, right? You don't want any remote control into it, especially external.
Right.
So if they have a very solid network infrastructure they have total control over, and it's a light effort, then they need to understand it's not your job to span the port, it's their job to span that port and make sure that traffic still flows, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then understand the ramifications of spanning that port, because some domain controllers are configured with 2 NICs for high availability. Right, right.
Yeah.
So do I span both ports that that's plugged into? Right. I know the IP addresses are going to be static. You never put DHCP, but just in case one goes down, you don't want to mess up your authentication fabric. Even if it's virtualized, now you got to span a port of a virtualized domain controller through the host. Let them run through it. They'll come back and say, now tell me about this agent again, this sensor. What does it do? And then you say, put the sensors on it. And then we'll put a reverse proxy in front of it. And so everything has to go through the proxy. And so now the proxy is the security mechanism that you only allow this agent and maybe Windows updates to go through, and you're good to go, right? This has been taken into account. Otherwise, span a port. And once you get all the ports mirrored and traffic, and then you know that your user not having authentication issues or application not having authentication issues, and you're not having Kerberos issues and all this other type of stuff, then we should be good to go. If they can't, the lightweight gateway proto sensor was created just for that reason. Very few organizations have a complete control to be able to do it. Edward, for IoT, worth looking up. Peter Gallagher, yep, know him. And a guy called Paul DeClore, don't think I know him, for IoT, plus Clifford Akins, I think I know him. And he's also a pilot for 787. Cool. Yeah, Boeing, Lockheed, Airbus, yeah. They do have this thing where they can track some of this. Certain industries are really good at stuff too. Like banks are great at AI and ML and analytics. Banks are solid.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Proprietary. Don't share.
Yeah. Was that one customer who actually had their whole network mapped properly? Were just throwing out there, were they like a critical infrastructure client? Because I've had those and they got it all dialed, right? No, it wasn't? Okay. What kind of industry were they in?
They sell nails.
Okay. Super interesting. Yeah. I mean, and to any nail companies out there, thanks for all you do. But yeah, okay, that's fun. Yeah, who's got an up-to-date network map all the time? I've seen that. That's fair. I mean, it might be a good time to do that, but
And then when the customer goes, yeah, our network's totally mapped out. We use SolarWinds. Give me $1,000.
A lot of jokes there. A lot of jokes. Yeah.
We have the best networking mapping and configuration software out there. It automatically configures itself whether we do anything or not. Give me $1,000. I'll give you this query so you can go run it, right?
Yeah.
And so, or a good bottle of scotch, right? Oh, Paul also does work on Jetson Nano or a good bottle of scotch. I'm not a scotch guy. I got scotches for guests that come over. I got like 3 bottles of Johnny Walker Blue Label that was gifted to me. I got some Macallan really old stuff. I got to really be in an ish mood to drink scotch, right? Well, I won't forget all my problems in the world. So.
Yeah, and you got to do it with a buddy who wants to do it with you, right? Like I'm not a big scotch guy, but my buddies are, and if they want to get into it, fine. But I'm not keeping around the house really all that often. They have it at their places. You're a beer guy, right? You like the craft? Yeah. There you go. Red Solo Cup. Yeah.
That's the reason I run, man, because I run so much because I drink so much beer. I'm about to go have sushi tonight with some nice Lucky Booty lager. And I'm gonna chill out, man. I had been feeling good lately. It's working, sleep, and it's been studying, right? I'm gonna knock this SC. What I got to get done? I got to get
That's for your offensive security course, the one Frank.
I'm not ready for that. That's out of my league. Yeah, Frank's already hit me. I'm not ready for that. So I got to renew. I got to take the SC 200. I need to renew my AZ 500, renew my MS 500. I'm going to take the 508 from Sands first. Prove that I have time and effort to get through that, pass, get the certification. I'm not ready for that OSCF and that offense. That's not for the light of heart. I know my limitations.
That's fair, bud. That's fair. Well, it sounds
like
you
just throw your money away. Yeah, you might as well just throw your money away because if you don't give it your effort, you might as well just give me $1,000. That's what they're going to say. $1,000, and I'll show you, right? But hey, if you want to talk more out of band about MDI, or if you need to pull me into a conversation, I've been doing a lot with it. I probably have some really cool decks. I can make persuasive conversation to the customer and say, this is really the way you want to go. And I think the customer doesn't know. You don't have to do all. You can span some ports, and you can put the agent on some domain controllers.
I never considered that. I thought it was all or nothing kind of thing. Okay, I'd love to see the decks you have, and as long as you're not $1,000 an hour, but we'll see about bringing
for you. Give me $999.99.
Yeah. Oh man, that's the price. Go. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah. Hey man, for friends,
yeah,
I'm giving you a deeper discount than most, but because I'm really cool with you, give me $999.98.
We got rid of the penny in Canada, so that's $999.95 over here.
I still got a bunch of Canadian coins. I told you I just live in Waterloo, so.
No, you didn't. That's cool.
We're really London.
Okay, yeah, close enough. Yeah.
Worked at RIM.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, yeah.
Back in the glory days.
That's where Matt worked, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool.
We probably crossed each other.
Yeah.
Because we talked about it. Matt and I used to be on the same team.
You may have told me that, but I forgot.
I interviewed Matt.
What team was that?
He was in OCP. The team he's on now.
Okay, sweet.
I interviewed Matt for that position.
Oh, good stuff.
That's how I met him. Mm-hmm.
Small world. I can't wait to meet you guys in person at an in-person event sometime in the future. Maybe 2022 at this rate, but I can't wait. Like to actually start networking in person again once it's safe to do so.
I actually miss people, man. I miss the customers. I miss building that relationship, sitting, shaking their hand, seeing them in person and know who you're losing.
Totally. It's different doing workshops and stuff online and, everyone's on mute and off camera. And maybe, I saw one guy accidentally go on camera with his shirt off today. It's different, right? It's different. Yeah, I know that was an accident.
Yeah.
But,
and so
it's different. Yeah.
You can shake hands with folks and say, hey, you got a question? And like, yeah, so let me show you. Right. And they go like, okay. And then you can also figure out who your friends are in the crowd and who your not so friends are.
Right.
Because people are bad mouthing you. This fucking Brodie guy from Microsoft doesn't know can't find his ass with both hands, right? And so, but in the room you can read the face.
Yeah.
And you can pivot the conversation. And you can tell to put people on break. When you got 5 to 6 minutes left in a particular talk track that's not super important, put everybody on break. Hey, everybody meet back here in 15 instead of 10. Right?
Love it.
You know, go do something at the desk, do this and that. We'll start promptly back at so and so. When you on Zoom, people are like, hey, be back in 10. They come back 30 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no.
Or they're just not even paying attention on their wireless outside, right? So yeah.
Yeah. So well, anyway, thanks to all our listeners.